Here's the thing about your movie, why I made a curator's pick of the Hollywood Fringe community, heart,
Blackbook Mondays, SOS.
We are at war. If the truth hurts, then you'll be in pain. If the truth drives you crazy, you'll be insane. The laws are designed so that the black man as a collective cannot get paid. As I told you before, we're at
war. Good morning, my brothers and sisters. We are at war. Yes, we are. We have to realize it's time for us to understand Black power is a three-legged stool requiring social justice, economic might, and our political agenda. Not the Democrats, not the Republicans, but ours. And speaking of that political agenda, we've been spending a lot of time getting to know the candidates. And some people would call them underdogs. I call them people's choice. Because we have to realize if we continue to just follow the lead of the PACs, the folks with the most money, then we'll continue to get what we get. And folks, we are at war. So here we go. We're going to start off with my co-host, my man here, Mr. Crazy D. How are you doing?
Hey, what's going on? Blackbook Mondays, you know, it's Lordland Films. We cover this. You can see this on the YouTube app through Cox Cable. So you go to Cox Cable and through the YouTube app, you can see everything that we do here. Lordland Films, because a beautiful black image is everything. And we have some big announcements after we introduce the two guests.
All right. And we got here?
Robert Langford.
And you're running for?
Clark County District Attorney.
Folks, understand, three of the most important state are the governor, the district attorney, and the sheriff. They affect people of color disproportionately more than we realize. And then we got another person here, Amy for the People.
Hello, yes, I'm Amy Vilela, and I'm running for Congress in Nevada's 4th District.
Okay. These folks have graciously come in to talk to us on Blackbook Mondays, and I thank them. I thank them because I want to do I did a little Blackbook minute this morning. I talked about transparency in the black community. Understand, folks, none of these folks are paying me. None of them are paying me. They pay as a sponsor to come on the radio to cover our expenses. But if they were, I would tell you. But I believe it's important from a transparency aspect that when people who look like us bring people to come in as candidates, they should let you know if they're being paid. It's no problem being paid, but you need to know. Because the truth of the matter is, if you're being paid, you should vet that candidate out. You should make sure they're good for our community. All money ain't good money. And in our community, far too many times, and I said this earlier, we've sold our community for 2 pieces of silver. And that's got to stop. And that's one of the reasons we have Blackbook Monday here.
That's true.
Okay, so a couple of quick housekeeping, and then we're going to get to our candidates. The Shepherd's Breakfast is usually the last Wednesday of every month. It is going to be this coming Wednesday, folks. It's sponsored by Tim Bedwell, who's running for sheriff. Come out, break bread. Man, there's no cost for the breakfast. It is, I'll put the address on the Facebook Live, but it's no cost, but you get a chance to listen to a lot of the candidates, to meet black-owned businesses, to network. I go there. If I'm in town, I go to the Shepherd's Breakfast. So come out and meet some of these candidates tomorrow at the Shepherd's Breakfast. Quick shout out to some new Blackbook members, the Mod Company Hair Factory in Henderson. She's got a vacation holiday giveaway to celebrate her startup. So check her out on Facebook and go by and visit her and have a chance to win a holiday vacation. Kason Travels, they are on the Blackbook as a premier, and I'd like to welcome them. Before we get to these folks, voting. May 26th through the 8th is early voting. May 26th to June 8th, early voting, and you can vote wherever you vote. There are no requirements that you be at a specific location. As long as they take in voting, you can vote there. So go out, vote. June 12th is the actual day. Folks, this is an important day that we get out here and vote. So we'll come back and talk about some announcements that are going on, but we want to come here and talk to our folks who've come in and who graciously come in to talk about our issues and to listen to what we have to say. And we'll start off, Mr. Robert Langford. I met him. I came by. I talked to him. He had some neat things to say. I said, you need to come on the Blackbook Monday so people can get to know you. So without any further ado, Mr. Robert Langford, here you go.
How you doing, Brian? Good to see you.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about your platform.
Well, you mentioned a few minutes ago that Black Power is a three-legged stool. One of the things you talked about was social justice. You cannot have social justice without true criminal justice. And we don't have justice in the criminal system right now. And so my platform is doing criminal justice reform. And there's so many things that can be done in criminal justice to make it more fair, more transparent, and people to have access and have a voice in the district attorney's office.
That's great. So tell me, do you believe there are biases in the district attorney's office at this time?
Oh, of course. Let me say this. I don't know it for certain, but neither do we know for certain that there isn't bias. And the reason for that is they don't keep statistics. I believe there's bias in the district attorney's office, but until we start treating our government like we would a regular business and doing an analysis of what we're actually doing, we're not going to have any ideas about what's going on. So I believe that there is institutional bias against people of color, people who don't have any money. If you are, I heard a TED Talk this morning where a person who was a social justice reformer, an attorney, criminal defense attorney, did a motion that his client, who was a juvenile African American, and he did a motion to the judge so that his client could be treated like a 65-year-old white millionaire. And I thought that was pretty good. I was like, I got to figure out a way to do that myself. We don't have statistics. We don't keep statistics. And you know what? There's a reason they don't keep statistics, and that's because we're afraid of what it will show. Until we have a leader that stands up and says, I want to lead the office from a platform of I believe there's institutional racism in the office. Until we have that leader who says, and I want to change that, we won't have any change. For the last 6 years, there's not been any change. It's been the same old, and it's time to change lawyers.
You can't fix it until you admit it. So that's great. I want to ask, we're going to come back to that because I want to switch back over. I'm going to go to Amy and come back to you in a second. So Amy, tell us a little bit more. Obviously, I came out and I've listened to you talk. So here's a chance in here. Tell me what your agenda is. Tell me what you think. And I'm going to put this on the board. I said this at the Young Democrats. To me, the biggest threat to national security is wealth disparity in America. If we don't fix that problem, we're never going to fix education. We're never going to fix health care. We're never going to increase the middle class. And us as black folks, we have no chances unless we basically start looking at this disparity issue, especially in the black community, and come up with ways to fix everybody, but also to fix us at the same time, because we are just as important as everybody else. So give me your thoughts.
Definitely. One of the key components of my campaign is talking about economic disparity. We are at levels that we have not seen since the 1940s. And it's only growing. One of the figures I put out a lot, and it really is shocking when you think about it, is that the top 10% of the wealthiest families in this country have over 75% of the wealth. And that is growing. It's growing. And think about it. It's everything in politics really is intersectional when you think about it. When we have economic disparity, then we don't have the same school systems going throughout the different neighborhoods, or we don't have, certain neighborhoods do not have economic growth. It is only going to spread out. They even did a study, even when you talk about like health insurance, something as simple as that. If someone that is white has insurance and has the same level as someone who is African American, they will still die 10 years sooner than the white person. This all has to do with, if you think about, if you don't have the same job protections, or if you don't make the same money, or you can't afford to take off from work, or you're afraid to take off from work to go get health care, you're still at a disadvantage. So everything is very intersectional, and we have to really work on this holistically and start putting, the people's needs first and doing it in a more fair way. Right.
Now, am I correct? You did not take any large PAC funds?
No, I've not taken any corporate money at all. Not from a corporational PAC, and not from a PAC that's packaged up nice and neat. That is a leadership PAC with a bunch of corporate funds in it. Because as a chief financial officer, I can tell you that I know that big companies don't shell out money because they believe in good governance. They shell it out because they want a return on their investment. And this is how the needs of the people are not being met, because they're beholden to their donors and not to the people.
You hear that, folks? The folks with the largest PACs and the largest signs aren't necessarily the people for the people.
Right, and my campaign is actually proving that people do have power. We were the second highest raiser at this last FEC filing to date, and we have had zero money from corporations. All of our money has come from individuals and small contributions. I think we averaged $24 a contribution. We've had over 6,000 individual contributions.
Oh, wow. So I'm going to switch back over. We'll come back to you again. I want to come here, and I'm going to throw this out, and you can give I have to go back on this issue for us to understand. We need to understand that if we make no changes happen. Now, I'm going to use this, and some people will look at it like this. I'm not a fan of OJ's, but I don't believe that he was treated without bias, because per our laws, you don't get a second bite of the apple for what you did and were found not guilty. And I look at the circus that went on the issues that went there, and it's a pure, obvious disparity and bias that permeates throughout. Right now, a lot of the organizations decide who lives, who dies, who decides who goes to jail and who doesn't, and we have to really not look at the person and say, oh man, he did this, so he got his just due the second time. Now we got to take it out and look from a law perspective and say, did they treat this issue fairly and consistently as they would if somebody else didn't have a big name or wasn't a person of color or whatever? We got to be consistent. Justice must start to become blind if we ever want to have fairness in the justice system. So I'll head it to you, Mr. Langford. What do you have to say about what I just said?
Well, I mean, clearly that, I made a statement to the newspaper at the time of the second O.J. trial, the second time he was tried for murder, because that's actually what I call it. He was tried and convicted in Nevada for a crime he had committed in California 10 years earlier.
Well, it's not a crime that he committed because he was found not guilty.
No, that's true.
So he didn't commit the crime because they found him not guilty.
Yeah, but if you don't think the jury here in Las Vegas was just looking at the murder in Los Angeles, I beg to differ with you. That jury and that judge was convicting him for something they thought he did 10 years earlier. So.
And I say that because, folks, we have an inherent problem that you look at, that black folks at this point, we are guilty until proven innocent. And that's because we don't go out and vote. That's because we don't elect the district attorneys. And then if we elect them, they will understand that all we want is a level playing field. We want fairness in the justice system. And it is important that we kind of look at the records, not what people tell us they did, but look at the records and try to determine, is this person saying what he means and doing what he says when we pull that lever. But if you don't pull the lever, you've already said, I don't care. If you don't vet people out, then you're saying, I don't care. And then you want to go march, and we don't march anymore, or you want to go out and be upset about it after the fact. Well, the door's been closed. The horse is running wild. So we have these so you can get more of an understanding on what's going on. So we're gonna go back to Amy, but Mr. Crazy D, I love your interjection. So tell me what you think.
Well, I just came off of shooting the Malcolm X Day over the weekend. May 19th was Malcolm X's birthday, and the document is coming out June 1st. But a lot of people make a big deal over after Malcolm came back from Mecca. He said this. He said, thoughts haven't changed, but have expanded. He said he'd be willing to work with anybody who was about what he was about. That meant those people going back to their people and getting them to change their ways. So what that means is when we sit up and we speak to the different candidates here, we're looking for the candidates to express something new and not something that's just generically canned, like a canned audience. We're looking for them to express something that is about black people. Do not get fooled by Malcolm coming back from Mecca and then people just say, well, he said he wanted to work with everybody. No, he created the Organization of African American Unity, not OAAU and everybody. He didn't say give your economics away, give your political power away while allowing non-melanated people to just run rampant over you, because if that was the fact, then that's been what this whole story is about. And there's always been people who have fought that who are melanated people. So when we bring people here to the Blackbook Monday show, we're here to hear from them, to talk about the black agenda and how we're going to take what is systemic racism within the system and start to dismantle the systemic racism and start to reformulate the system.
And if you don't vote, you can't dismantle. Now I might come back, Amy. One of the things and I'm gonna use the stadium as an example. There's a lot of high fives about diversity in the stadium. There's a lot of high fives about the amount of women participating and minorities. But I've looked out there weren't a lot of people who look like me. There were really not a lot of people who looked like me. So I made a request that we find out how many black folks and how many black businesses are there. And by the fact, this Wednesday at the government building at 9 o'clock, I'm going to officially make that request to the stadium board to give me the breakdown by race and percentages, because something don't smell right. And if it don't smell right, you need to open up a window. So bottom line is, I got a question for you, Amy. This is at the level of the federal level. The initial set-asides for minorities were for black folks. And one time it was 10%, and was done in a way that you saw systemic growth in the black community as far as economically. However, it's been watered down, so it's everybody. They changed the name to diversity. They talk about now disadvantaged businesses, which means everybody. And so now they're high-fiving because the numbers are higher, but we're in the minority mix, and it seems like now it means everybody but us. I've asked both on a state level and on a government level, on a federal level, that just as they count veterans, just as they count disability, just as they count women, how about counting us again separately instead of having us in the minority tag? What do you think about that, Amy? And would you support it?
I would support it. I think that we have to definitely understand there are different challenges for every community, but especially for the black community, when we're talking about economics in the black community, we also have to be talking about not just that, but also ensuring that we are helping the black community also have their own black-owned businesses supported, keeping the money in their communities, making sure that they have specific mechanisms.
And keeping our communities.
Yes. keeping specific mechanisms available and ready to go to help that process. So I know you and I talked once about there is a mayor who's doing some amazing things.
Yep.
And he's actually doing co-ops with the community, and they co-op. The first thing they brought in was a movie theater, keeping the money in the community and helping people be business owners, right? Once you have a movie theater, then you start getting restaurants. Then these are just some ideas and how we have to start thinking outside the box to make sure that we're addressing the needs of the Black community, making sure that we are enabling the Black community to also have more Black-owned businesses and not just being workers and having to fight the system on that way as well. But definitely we need to be looking at that and addressing those issues separately, because it's so important that we understand and listen that every community has their own specific needs and challenges. And I don't think that they're always being heard. I think people with the most money or influence are the ones being able to have that seat at the table, and everyone needs a seat at the table and a voice.
Okay, great. Now we're going to switch over here to John. Hold on, John. I have a question here. And looking at the DA, when you talk about some of the issues that need to be fixed immediately, give me like your top 3 or 4 that if I come in here and I'm the new district attorney, this is where I'm going to focus and why.
Okay, top 3 or 4, and these are to answer some concerns that have been expressed here this morning. Okay, top number 1 is bail. Bail hurts the African American community probably more than any other group of people, okay? Cash bail is worthless. I'm here to say it is worthless. A judge has already determined that a person is not a danger to the community when they say, I'm going to let you make bail. They've said, you're not going to threaten someone, you're not going to steal or be violent, so I'm going to let you out on the street, but I'm going to make you pay bail first. Mm-hmm. Rich people, white people, that's not a problem, okay? But people in the African American community, that's a problem.
Economics.
Not just that, but people who can't afford it, who can't afford to make bail, they lose their jobs. They lose their apartments. They lose their ability to continue to function in the system is hampered. Let's say they make bail. They start out paying a bigger price for what they're accused of than somebody else. Bail over and over again has been shown to have little or nothing to do with whether a person's going to come back to court. So what is it? It's a hidden tax and penalty on the African American community.
Bingo.
Day one, I'm going to change that. Okay.
Okay. Well, let me respond real quick.
Mm-hmm.
We met with the district attorney, Woodson.
Yep.
Wolfson, excuse me. Wolfson. We met with him, and he expressed that he has implemented into the system now where if a person is a first-time offender, they automatically get kicked already without need of bail.
Okay, so that is not true.
Explain it.
His office repeatedly goes in, even on first-time offenses. So there's a pilot program right now called it's basically to do a better analysis of the person before they're admitted to bail. Okay, but if you start out with the premise that bail is a good thing, you're not really changing it. You're just sort of moving the chairs around. And that's what Wolfson is doing. He's just moving the chairs around. Bail is a worthless predictor of whether somebody is going to come back to court. There are studies going back to 1976 that show that. And until we have somebody that's willing to stand up to the bail industry and say, we're not going to do bail anymore. If the judge says this person is not a threat to the community, there's no reason that person should also have to pay bail before they get out.
Yep. Now, I want to change the question real quick.
Okay. Because he was going to give three more.
I know. I want to come. I forgot. I wanted to ask this one because this is one. When we did visit the district attorney, he said they did have data. It's just not available to the community. And we talked about a scorecard because it's one thing that people are in jail trying to get out. I'm concerned about them going to jail for because an officer had a bad day or they got pulled over and they felt they were disrespected, so they put them in jail on a, it turns out to be, I pulled you over for a tail light and I put you in jail for resisting arrest.
Or just plain old unwarranted traffic stops.
Exactly. So we asked him about a scorecard, which he said hopefully he will, whoever's there will do that. I'm going to ask you, number one, whether the data is there, but when you come in, would you be willing to do some type of a scorecard that went out so we could grade police and potentially catch that person who has his biases, or at least keep those biases in check? Because right now, okay, if I send you to jail on a bogus, it don't affect me, but it's affecting the person who's going just because that person had a bad day. Would you work with the DA, work with the sheriff, Tim Betwell for sheriff, and the other surrounding folks around here to put together a scorecard that can be used to let these folks know if you want to be employed, you need to keep those biases in check?
Here's what I propose, okay? I am not smart enough to come up with a system that I think would be worthwhile. But
I'll help you.
But there are groups, but there are academic groups out there, such as the Vera Institute, that have been doing this a number of years and looking at racial bias and looking at how do you measure racial bias and how do you change the culture of racial bias in a district attorney's office. My plan is to invite those groups in. Open up. If there's data, I've never seen it. You've never seen it. There's not data. I'm sorry, there's just not data.
If the data is there not being used, there's no data.
They said that they kept the data. They just haven't used it. So they do have it. He admitted to that.
Yep.
He admitted that there's bias in the police force.
Yep.
And so here we are.
Yep.
Well,
So-
yeah. Well, if you got data and you don't use it, then
I mean, but it's there.
Yep.
So that means
Okay.
that if
That's
you
great.
know it's there and you've looked at it, but you're not using it in a constructive way, then you're part of the problem.
right. That's right.
Hold on
That's
for a sec, because here's the thing, folks. This is going on for another half an hour, so stay tuned. We will be on Facebook Live, and obviously Crazy
got
D
3
will be
minutes.
doing it. We got 3 minutes. I just want to do a quick housekeeping, but this will go on after our half an hour here on Power 88. Quickly, I want y'all to know, we got some neat things happening here. Blackbook TV will be coming out in August, folks. This will be the first black-owned channel. And I'm not talking about an internet channel, even though we will probably have it on our app and probably look at other ways. But this will be a channel, a TV channel that will have programming specifically designed for the black community, to educate us, to enjoy us. I'm happy to say one of my partners in doing this is Lordland Films. Mr. Crazy D is actually going to be the vice president of content and operations. So we're excited. We got a lot of work to do, but say a couple questions about. Say a few things.
couple of comments.
1 minute.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Lordland Films, is on Cox Cable through the YouTube app. Of course, Lordland Films and Lordland TV is on the website. Lordland Films Gumbo coming soon on Vimeo. We've got another special announcement coming in June, but right now we are announcing 5/21/2018. Beginning in August, Lordland Films content is on the only black-owned TV station that is in Las Vegas.
Locally
Give
owned.
more to them, Brian.
Yeah.
Let them know what it is. It is Blackbook TV.
Blackbook TV, baby. And we're going to have content. And I'll tell you, if you are looking to have a program, please contact me. You can call me or text me. Do not leave a voicemail, 708-805-3819. Or you can send me a email at lvblackbook at lvblackbook702@gmail.com.
Let me say this real quick, Brian. Real quick. This is what we are about here. We are about black-owned businesses succeeding. If you are a non-melanated person and you put your business under a melanated person's name and use a melanated person to be the face or the figurehead of the company to get minority tag, to get minority dollars designated, That is the same old, no good, low down business that we have been subject to for over, now it's going to be coming up on 500 years. I wouldn't be used. I have pride as a black man.
That's right. So say it loud. We're black and our proud. And we are coming to Vegas. We will be the only locally black-owned channel in Las Vegas. We're going to have a lot of stuff like Blackbook business hours, black films around the world, new black artists, Black Las Vegas After Dark, the real black history, black business around the world, the black market show,
black auto sales, black reality, realty shows, insurance, black Shark Tank, black jazz, Caribbean music, black hair, black news that we can use.
Absolutely. So tune in. Let us know if you want to find out some more. We're about to head out on Power 88 KCP, but we got another half an hour to go with these candidates because half an hour isn't enough for you to be an informed voter. So we thank you, the listeners on Power 88. You can catch us on Facebook Live. Brian Harris, EMC Consulting. Say it loud. We black and we proud. So more to come. So if I'm going to ask you, and we're going to come back for the rest of the answers, Mr. Langford, in a second. What do you think are the two highest things, the highest issues you would focus on if you're elected?
Well, one of the things that most anyone who's around me knows that this is a passion of mine, but not just because, I lost my daughter Shalyn to it, because it's one of the things happening in the United States of America right now, which is costing immense amount of lives. Mm-hmm. We are seeing right now that we have, on average, 35 to 45,000 people a year dying from a lack of health care. Mm-hmm. And to be clear, this disproportionately affects people of color and the poor. Mm-hmm. This is an outrage. It's a tragedy over and over and over again. And I put it into real terms. Since my daughter died, there's been about, conservatively, 105,000 other people that have died from this. Mm-hmm. So to me, this is an emergency. The next thing we need to do is we need to start getting some rebuilding our economy. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of Democrats right now that are starting to sign on to a federal jobs guarantee to make sure that we have money coming back into the communities and offering anyone and everyone who's able to work a job at a livable wage. These are things that we can start doing just to start putting money back into the economy and start reversing the effects of trickle-down economics and start being able to have spendable income back in our working class again.
Right. Let me give you a suggestion. I like some of the things you said. Number one, living wage versus minimum wage. And I heard you talk about jobs, so just a suggestion from me. We need to have some way where funds are available for local businesses. In other words, if you live in that business, that you can create businesses. Because jobs, to me, is a joke. We had full jobs in slavery. We need to have the ownership with people who live in the area, because if they live, they have pride in the area. They will invest in the area and it'll grow. Far too many times we can't compete against these international companies no matter what they do. And yeah, they can give jobs and they can take them away. But really, somehow we have to break down the barriers of entry, including the marijuana industry, so that people who look like us have the same opportunities as everybody else.
That is multifaceted. I do agree, especially if it's on my webpage too. That is something I'm addressing even with the cannabis industry. This will be one of the things we have right now. It's multifaceted in that we have to have money back into the working class to be able to expend on products, right? But we also need to work with state and local communities in order to start putting money out there in forms of grants, working at making sure that there is preference given in certain circumstances, and that we are monitoring how money, like in the Small Business Administration, is being done. I don't know that they don't go far enough.
Yeah, well, they changed the rules, so they going to spend money with $1 million small businesses, multi-million?
Right, it doesn't go far enough.
Real small businesses?
Right, exactly.
Well, they changed the designation, so small businesses is a joke.
It's ridiculous. I mean, $1 million is small business. Most people are starting off with just a local.
You can have $10 million and still be a small business, so who am I going to get my funds through? That $10 million small business or that
Well, here's something else that's important.
$20,000.
A federal jobs guarantee that I'm talking about isn't just about jobs. What it does is it's funded from the federal government, but it goes down and is pushed down into the states and localities to decide how they're going to use those funds. We're talking about transportation, fixing roads, blight removal. We could, if we have somebody in office who's really going to fight for the different communities, have them ensuring that those funds are going in to rebuild the communities that need it and infrastructure.
And people who look like us, because far
Right.
too many times they're pushed down to union jobs or they're pushed down somewhere else, and even the people who need it the most are still locked out, and that's a big problem we have.
We have to be true about the history of unions. Unions were formed to keep black people out. So when we talk about what the unions are doing, about you have to be union or union affiliated, well, it's just there to keep black people out. I mean, that's what we have to do.
Small
'cause
percentage of
that's
us
their,
make it in, but
yeah. That's our history, and then we had to fight to get into something that was made for us not to prosper.
exactly. I'm gonna come back to that. I want to go back to Mr. Langford.
I do have a question for Mr. Langford.
Okay.
He came from off of the Facebook
You can
Live.
ask that question because I was about to ask it. Go ahead.
Okay. So Rodney Smith wants to know what your stance is on sentencing children as adults.
My stance is that should not happen. I can't think of a circumstance where that's a good idea. You've got to treat kids as kids. I mean, that goes back to the ending the playground to prison pipeline, and how we treat our children. I mean, again, that's a classic situation where there is racial bias. We know it. We see it all the time, where kids of color are treated differently than white kids, and so you've got to stop it at that point. And that goes all the way up to all of a sudden we want to treat them as adults. I don't buy it. I don't think it
So how would you go about changing it? What programs would you institute? Will we have to go through this 4 or 5 year study?
No, the district attorney. No, let me get this straight, because you're talking about, I think, the Vera Institute, and I said I wanted to invite those people in.
Right.
These people have been doing it around the country and affecting criminal justice reform. If you don't change the culture of an office, okay, you end up with the same old, same old. And then if you don't come in and aggressively say, we are changing the culture, this is what we're going to do. I'm not about reinventing the wheel if I don't have to. And I would invite you to look at the verainstitute.org website and see what they're doing in terms of changing prosecutors' offices to affect criminal justice, real justice, okay? If you get these people involved, in fact, it is quicker because they know what they're doing, and they know that you can come in and what you need to do is say, this is the way it's gonna be, and if you don't wanna get on board, there's the door. Or if you don't do it, then you're gonna be subject to discipline. That's how you change things, and we've got to do that. I'm not saying I want to do a 5-year study, but I want to do it right. And I think the quickest way to do it is look at how it's been successful across the country and invite people in a very transparent process. And that's not happened this is a national trend, right? We're seeing prosecutors across the country are saying, we need to have criminal justice reform. And the best way to do that is to elect a progressive candidate who understands that it's not all about arresting, prosecuting, and putting people in prison as long as you possibly can.
Absolutely.
I'm going to ask the same question I asked the district attorney. Why would you do this? Why would you begin to reform the system? Why?
Because it's part of my DNA. And I've been asked the same question many times, and all I can say is, from the time I started college on, it's what I wanted to do. I grew up in mixed race neighborhoods. I went to kindergarten in Compton, California, okay? So I understand. I know, Compton, California, right? Well,
Compton, probably when you came through, Compton was still mixed.
It was
before people did
you're
white
right.
flight,
No.
right? So it was a nice neighborhood.
No, it wasn't.
Anyway.
Trust me, it wasn't.
Oh, okay.
It was
Well,
a tough
yeah.
neighborhood. It was a tough neighborhood.
Yeah, all neighborhoods are tough coming through. But also, I asked him the follow-up question, which is, isn't it being done because there's overcrowding, and it's a economic situation where it's costing the state
That's why.
money.
Okay, that's why you get bipartisan support, no doubt, right? So you go to a conservative website and they're all about criminal justice reform, but they're about it because it is costing money, and it is costing money, okay? But you know what? If one person says, I don't want to spend the money, and another person says, because it's the right thing to do, and justice is something that we have to have in our free society, right? If you end up at the same result, I mean, why not?
But,
why not?
Well, here's the thing, and I like the fact you said because you in your DNA. Here's the problem and the trend that concerns me. Most of our legal system is now about money. It's about generating that back tax, and it goes to the least or the person who can't afford it the most. Now, I've heard a rumor, I cannot verify this in Henderson, that quotas are starting to come back out to the police to make sure that they write enough tickets. Well, you're writing those tickets not for public safety. You're writing them to generate revenue. And if we don't start trying to figure out how to stop taking, that reverse Robin Hood, I want to take from the ones who needed the most and giving it to ones who need the least, we got a problem here. Because right now, the poorest people, they're riding dirty because they can't afford insurance. They're riding dirty, or they got a taillight all out because they can't afford to pay it. And yet now they get hit with fines and penalties and everything else, and they lose maybe that last asset that they had, their car, and they're, and then now they're doing what they have to do to survive. So we got major.
Or let's be more specific, they are stopped. They stop at a stop sign, and it's their word against the police officer if they actually did a full stop, did a half stop, just ran the stop sign. So this is what we're talking about.
Yeah, it should be. We got to figure out how to take the money.
So first thing we need to do is, a lot of states have decriminalized traffic citations, and I absolutely think that should happen in Nevada.
I do too.
And if you decriminalize it, then you can't be put in jail for it. Right? The most they can do is go after you civilly. I can go a lot further about fines and fees and how that's another hidden tax on the poor, and how it is set up so that really very quickly, sorry Amy, very quickly, what happens is you go in and you get a $500 fine, right? Again, you're a rich guy, you just say, sure, $500. If you're a working poor, you have to say, can I get a payment plan? Judge says, sure. Payment plan is $100. Okay, so now you're up to $600, and you're being penalized again more than somebody who has money, right? Right up front. And then you go home, and your payment's $100 a month, and that first month it's like, okay, pay the fine or make rent, all right, because you're working poor. And so you decide you'd rather have a roof over your head. You get a bench warrant now because you didn't make that payment. So you go back into court, $600.
Let me stop. You lost your car because you got pulled over, and so your only
Anytime.
little asset you have is gone too.
Sure.
You're describing my life as a single mother right now.
Right? So you go into court and say, I got to quash the bench warrant. Okay, that'll be $50. Okay, so now you're up to $650. You go in front of the judge, and you say, all right, I'll give you a second chance. You want to be back on the payment plan? Yes, if I could get it down to $50 a month. All right, we'll do $50 a month, but to get you back on the payment plan, that's another $100. Okay, so now you're up to $750, and you haven't even cracked the first payment on this thing. And that's, somebody says, it is, then we put them in jail. Yeah, but we try to get them out of jail as fast as possible. You know why? Why? So we can put them back on the damn payment plan.
Yep.
All right? That's what it's all about. To keep people perennially poor, because if you keep people poor, you take away their power.
Absolutely.
Okay. So,
folks, listen to what this man is saying. Listen to what he's saying. If we don't vote and we don't listen, then we're going to basically end up on the same road we're headed to. You know, so I appreciate that. We're going to come back to you. And it's funny you said this, so I'm going to put it, he said that was Ferguson. He's absolutely right there. It's a money game, folks, and we got to get people who can come in here. Instead of having an objective of getting people out, you should have an objective of not ever putting them in jail. That should be our objective, is how do we keep our civilians, our people, our brothers and sisters in America from ever going to jail on these ridiculous almost games that are put together to take from the poor and keep them poor and give to the rich. So, Amy, we're going to go back to you. Great stuff we've been talking about. Amy, as I said, you know I'm a fanatic right now on the economy, and I believe, you know, we had a talk. It was supposed to be a 5-minute talk. It turned into a 40-minute talk or 45-minute talk. And I look for people who understand what's going on. Again, are you willing, and here's the thing, are you willing, I'm talking about from black folks, we need somebody who's going to fight for us to get an equal share. We're not getting an equal share. We pay taxes. We need somebody who's going to fight to kill the prison to pipeline, who's going to fight to strengthen the HBCUs, who's going to fight to take our issues. And I showed you that 11-point issue. And I want to say something. Amy was the only one who came to Nehemiah to sit down with us and help us flesh out part of this 11-point Black Agenda fan. So what are your commitment to take our agenda, obviously incorporated with everybody else's? We don't think our agenda is any better, but we also don't think it's devalued. It is as important to us as the Jewish community is to them, as the Hispanic community is to them. So what are you going to do to take up the banner to fight for the issues that are specifically prevalent to the black community?
Yeah, I think the first step is listening. I mean, I feel like there's a lot of talking from politicians that they often aren't present in the community and actually listening to what's needed. I have known when I went and confronted my congressman at the time about my daughter and what had happened and the injustice, to sit there and to feel helpless, that I did not have a voice, that my concerns, it did not matter that my daughter was dead. I don't want anyone in this district or in this state or across America for that matter to feel like they don't have a voice and they don't have a seat at the table. We have to make sure that we're involved in the communities. And I say this because I could go have a list of things I'm planning to do, but we have to really start making sure we involve people in the community in the process, having them have a seat at the table so that they can be part of that process.
We need a plate, not just a seat at the table.
You have a damn table.
Everybody talks about a seat at the table, but a seat with no plate, that's our agenda.
No, you need a plate and you need a full plate.
That's right.
A full plate, yes.
That's right, okay.
So I think that's important. We need to make sure that when we're looking at things, we look at things holistically. So when I was talking, I actually got a little bit of pushback on this one time. I was talking about gun violence. What are you going to do? And I said, well, I don't want to rush into, let's just put a whole bunch of other gun laws out there.
Absolutely.
Because here's the first thing it does. It does not put the people that are actually committing a lot of the crimes in jail. It disproportionately affects people of color.
People who look like me.
Yes, and they end up in jail. So we have to make sure when we're looking at every piece of legislation, every bill that happens, that we're looking at it holistically, we're seeing how it affects the different communities, and really being sure that it's really doing what it's intended to do. Because having a bunch of laws out there that are hurting the communities is not what's optimal. We need to make sure that we're really addressing the issues and making true change, not just placating our constituency and really just making, giving them just lip service.
Absolutely.
That, to me, it's so important. Look, I didn't get into politics because it was a career opportunity for me. I have had to pay one of the highest prices you have to pay for having a government that's really not putting the needs and interests of its people over the corporations, big dollars, money. I care because I know what it's like to lose in my own journey. Mm-hmm. That's what we need in our community.
Now, I'm going to ask this, I'm going to come back and I'm going to ask you, Robert, and then I'm going to come back here because you kind of got started down the issue. In America, we really, like you said, I'm afraid of more gun laws because the people who won't have guns are me. The people who I'm afraid of already got their guns. The issue, I believe, here is the root cause we have in America is we have a hate problem. We have a hate problem that is basically directed to an economy problem. When 1% own 80% of the wealth and is now going up to 90%, and you have 99% of the people fighting over that last 10-12%, then you become clannish. Then you look out, you start hating people, who other people lead you to believe are the root cause of your ills, when it's not true. Because if you ain't got no money and you coming across this wall coming across in this country to do the jobs that even we got no money we don't want to do, they're not your problem.
Sure.
The problem goes on the fact that we have a greed gone wild philosophy here in America that is scary. So tell me what your opinions are on that. I'll start with you, Robert, and then we'll go back to you, Amy.
Well, I agree, and so let's keep it in the criminal justice area for me. Why do we have drug laws for the most part? I mean, why did we outlaw marijuana, right? Why did we outlaw cocaine? Because those were drugs of people of color, were jazz musicians, right? Smoked reefer. And we still do that today. And we have a current sitting DA who says he's not going to do anything about past convictions for marijuana laws. I've said...
So would you do something?
Yeah, absolutely. You know what? I read that article, and somebody at the Legislative Counsel Bureau, an attorney for the legislature, said, "Oh, you can't do that." And I'm sorry, really? Really? I'm going to trust the Legislative Counsel Bureau? I mean, for goodness sakes, can't we just at least try? Can't we try? I'm absolutely certain that you could get somebody to pony up the bucks to come out and say, we will help you go back in and contact these people, and we'll put the petition on, and we'll get these convictions overturned. But instead, everybody just sort of throws up their hands and says, well, I can't do it. There's nothing I can do about that. So, sorry, we end up in the same spot. We've got to remove the barriers and the impediments to people being able to get back to work, all right? One of the ways we've kept people poor is we've made it so it's more difficult for them to get a good job, right? Yep. If you've got a criminal conviction, it is damn hard to get a good job. Maybe
Absolutely.
You can get a job, it's manual labor or something, but you cannot get a good job. You can't get licensed in many professions if you've got a criminal conviction. That's how we keep people down. That's how we keep people poor. And until you have somebody at the top who says, wait a minute, I recognize that, and I think that's not the way it should be, it's always going to be that way. So criminal justice is a tool to keep people poor, and we need to change that.
Well, we have to be historically correct on some things. Weed was not outlawed because jazz musicians smoked it. It was really in the 1920s when DuPont came out with nylon, and people were coming out with hemp fabric, using marijuana or weed as hemp fabric. So he got with some of his people. At the same time, people were trying to find a way to keep Mexicans from coming in. So they did kill two birds. They said the Mexicans are bringing in the weed, right. And so DuPont did his little thing, passed a little money around, and they voted to not only make it, they said the weed is coming in with the Mexicans, so make the Mexicans look like they're doing something illegal, so we can kill the hemp, and we can have the nylon, and we kill two birds with one stone. Right. And why is this battle constantly going on with Mexico and the United States? Is because originally Mexico, the government did not want the territory of Texas to be a slave territory. So that's what the Battle of the Alamo was fought for. So when non-melanated people say, remember the Alamo, they're saying, remember a battle that we fought, that we lost, but ultimately we did win the war. But remember a battle that we lost trying to make sure that we could bring slavery into Texas. So this is what this is all about. And this is a grudge that non-melanated people have had against the Mexicans. And they found a way to make Mexicans illegal and to make weed illegal, kill two birds with one stone. So when we do that, it's not about black jazz musicians.
Well, it also.
It's about, it just so happens that, but no, they made the face of weed black jazz musicians. So we had to be clear about what we say, so we don't put the wrong aspersions on the wrong people. It all comes back to a root. There's an evil root, which is white supremacy. That's an evil root, and so money. Well, slavery. They were property. People were property, but the Mexicans did not want that. So you killed two birds with one stone, and you kept something going from 18 something all the way into the 1920s, all the way into 2018.
Yeah, great. So I'm gonna go. I'm gonna have Amy answer that same question. But folks, if you like what you're hearing here, we're gonna post this on Independent Black Voters. We're gonna post all of the posts from the folks who come in, so you can be an informed voter. I ask you, 10 of your friends, take the link, add it to them. We can pull some upsets. Most of my folks are not the candidates that people have the PACs to. They're the people's choices. They're not the underdogs. They're the people's choices. But if we, the people, don't support these folks, we don't go out and listen, learn, and be educated, then we're going to continue to get the same of the same of the same. And folks, I'm tired of the same. So Amy, let me have you answer that question.
I'm so sorry, but I forgot the question now. We got off onto the history.
Yeah, the question was.
Sorry.
Do you remember the question?
You don't even remember
It's the same question that you asked him. Hey,
Yeah. No, we had asked you the question of basically economics and. Damn, I gotta think back.
You were talking about weed, keeping people from. That's how we got on to the whole discussion about
we
marijuana.
can talk about the drug war if you want. I'm comfortable.
Well, not the drug war, but he was talking about disproportionality and keeping people from out of that economic.
Yeah,
stream.
economics.
Oh yeah, so definitely. You know, as I was walking around, I was talking to people in the industry, in the cannabis industry. It became very apparent to me when I was going to a lot of the meetings that there were hardly any black people at the owners at these meetings. And here's the thing, I'm proposing to fight for federally legalize cannabis, but not just stop there. We need to get people who are in prison right now that have nonviolent drug offenses out, swipe their record, and also give them preference in the industry.
Instead of locking them out.
Exactly. They need to have preference, restitution.
Yeah. Well, you know, they did that in California and Oakland as a form of reparations. They actually made it so there was an easy entrance into the marijuana field for ex-offenders. And we need to do stuff like that throughout the country.
I agree. And, you know, right now it's like $200,000, $250,000 to get into the industry. And it was a lottery, which, you know, I'm not 100% persuaded that it was fair lottery.
Okay.
And again, this is a huge barrier of entry. And so we have communities that are decimated from this failed war on drugs. And now, again, now we're going to turn around and other people who are more at advantage are going to
profit. The people who put people in jail for the same thing are now becoming multimillionaires.
That's unjust.
Because here's the thing, and I say that when you understand economics, you have an issue in the marijuana industry, whether you called it legal or illegal, because we know it was a war on black folks. And when they saw the money that it was made as a illegal economic boom in the black community, they ripped it out. They took a $1 billion industry away from the black community and left nothing but a void and a hole, because they put in the cost of entry at the point to keep us out and lock us out. So that now, still will go to jail now, because the laws are now designed that even though marijuana is legal, if you aren't following the right criteria, you still go to jail. Right. So it's still designed to lock us out. This is an economic issue, and there needs to be economic fairness.
You can't forget about the testing in workplaces. I mean, so even though it's now, let's just give an example here in Nevada. Many people who are using cannabis, whether it's recreational or it's for medical purposes, they're at risk of losing their jobs or are not able to obtain jobs because now we're still doing the testing at the workplace.
Absolutely.
We definitely need some comprehensive changes to this, and making sure, again, this is another instance where we're talking about guns, where we're talking about the Small Business Administration, or talking about cannabis. We have to keep in mind when we're making laws and regulations, we're out there doing these things, that we are keeping all the communities, and not just blatantly going in and say, okay, yeah, this looks great. We have to think how it affects. And I'm sorry, I'm going to plug myself. I think we need more accountants in there that understand exactly what the effects of this is going to be economically and financially. We had this last tax bill passed, or I call it the tax scam. Mm-hmm. They were asking some of the senators, well, why'd you sign this? One actually said on TV, I would need an accountant to understand this. You shouldn't be signing legislation unless you know how it's going to affect people. And I understand how it affects not only on, a macro level, but let's talk about how it comes down to the communities on a micro level.
Yeah. And
how these are going to affect a lot of other programs and people's lives. And you have to care.
Yep. I'll give you an example, even shooting here. And there's some people running. They tax the insurance, the auto insurance, which they changed it from $15,000 to $25,000, and a lot of people, it was across party lines, and the justification, well, there's not enough insurance out there for to pay for all of the ills from the accident. Well, guess what? You made it very difficult for that person who can barely pay his insurance right now, let alone gas prices going up and everything else. Sometimes you got to look at the whole of everybody and make decisions. You can't turn around and let PACs, because we knew in that one the insurance companies and the attorneys wanted to get more money. It wasn't about the people, it was about you had two powerful PACs who came in and got people to do things across, and it negatively affected those who could afford it the least, because insurance went up 40-50%. For the people who could afford it the least. So we have to look for people who look and understand it's about everybody having an opportunity to be fair and consistent, and have an opportunity to meet the American dream. What do you have to say? We're going to go over here, and I'm going to say, what do you have to say? I want you to tell me a little bit more on why the folks watching here should, number one, vote for you, but number two, why they should send this to 10 of their friends to vote for you too.
Okay. Well, I've said it over and over and over again. Until there's a leader in that office who understands that there is issues that affect communities of color more than they affect anybody else, that you're not going to have changes. And you've got to have somebody who's willing to stand up and recognize that there's a problem. Hey, the district attorney is the attorney for the county. All right, so let's all talk about, I've got this attorney that treats me and my community differently than he might treat any of his other clients, right? Mm-hmm. And he rips me off. He charges way too much money, because Steve Wolfson keeps getting us in these situations where the county gets sued and he fights it. And I'm talking about the Review Journal, where he just recently paid their attorneys $55,000. $55,000 pays for a teacher. So if you've got an attorney that gives you bad advice, treats you worse than he treats any of his other clients, and charges you a fortune, it's time to change lawyers. Get a new attorney. My name's Robert Langford. Hire me.
And you're running for?
Okay.
And you're running for?
Clark County District Attorney.
Okay, thank you. Amy, same question. My viewers in here, we need to give them a reason why they need to take this tape and share it with 10 of their friends. So go forward. Why should you be the candidate for CD-4, or why should you be elected? Go ahead.
It's becoming increasingly obvious that status quo politicians are no longer enough. I really believe I bring a very unique mix to Congress, and that I've been that single mother. I've been on welfare. I've been on food stamps. I've been on WIC, Medicaid. I've been homeless with my children. I've been the woman getting arrested because I couldn't pay my tickets as a single mother. So I understand how hard and how expensive it is to be poor. But I also worked my way through college, and I became a chief financial officer. I understand economically what we need to do, again, to change this from being a trickle-down economy and make this back to an economy that is robust and is also not only lines the pockets of CFOs and CEOs, but it's good and advantageous for the working families. And we need to do it in a way that really brings economic, racial, social justice to everyone. And, you know, I understand, I have paid the ultimate price for having lackluster representation that is not putting people's needs, not putting people over profit. We need a representative that's going to go in there and fight for the people, and I am a people's candidate. So again, my name's Amy Vilela, and I'm running for Congress in Nevada's 4th Congressional District.
Okay, you've seen the black agenda that was put together by myself. Why? Because I'm black and I think we need an agenda. Would you support the agenda and fight to make sure that black folks get a say or a seat at the table with a plate, a spoon, a fork, so we can eat like everybody else?
I'll even give you a wine glass.
We need that.
Yes.
And the food.
And the drink.
And the wine. I said I did bring a wine glass. Yes, of course. Yes.
Okay. Hey, Mr. Crazy, Zon, you got anything to say? Because we've gone on for a while, but it's well worth
Yeah,
it.
man, all I have to say is this is a great discussion when you can have candidates come in and not be afraid to talk about issues. If you don't come in and talk about the issues, and even if you don't necessarily agree or you don't even care about the black agenda, let people know what you really believe. And, you know, then people can make a educated decision. Now, I know that sounds strange, come in and let people know what you actually believe. You know, that sounds strange. But people would rather have honesty than the same old canned BS. So that's what I'll say. And I want to, again, commend Brian Harris for bringing this forward. You know, we've got Blackbook TV coming. You know what I mean? Of course, LordlandFilms.com is already running with all the different pieces. You will see this up later today so that you can actually hear the candidates. And Brian, before you close out, let's talk about
Blackbook
TV.
TV.
Blackbook.
Yeah.
No. Well, Blackbook TV, but let's talk about the screens in Mario's and also about the Blackbook books.
Yeah. So, folks, we are about to end this. And I thank you all who took the time to listen. If you like what you heard, folks, copy the link. Give it to 10 of your friends. Tell them they need to lead them. We gotta grab the horse, take them to the water, and dunk their heads. Because the bottom line, we can have some major upsets. They think that they got it won because they got all the money. But technology allows us to get in contact with people in a way that you never could in the past. If 5 or 10 forward to 5 or 10, and then we vote as educated voters, all that data that they collected goes to waste because we can pull the upsets. These are the people's choices. They took the time to come out. They've taken money and time away because they believe they can make a difference for us. It's time for us to take the time to be educated voters and support them as they go forward. We're here to give you the knowledge to make the right decisions. We cannot continue to be bamboozled by lights, glitz, and empty promises. So, folks, again, I thank you, Mr. Langford. Amy, I thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Because, again, their schedule is tough. They're trying to get those last votes, and hopefully they got a few here. We're going to end by just a couple of things, folks. I'm going to say this again. CSN, you can call and get yourselves a meal on us at Grits Cafe or TC's Rib by just calling Sonia at 702-399-6200 and getting a quote, because your auto rates are high. They can save you some money. Tell them the Blackbook sent you and they will mail you out a coupon. The other thing, Blackbook TV is coming out in August. What you're seeing now, you're going to see a lot more on Blackbook TV. We're going to be able to take these to a full hour. We're going to vet the candidates. We're going to basically have our Black Business Hour where we're going to be talking about Black business. We're going to be bringing in Black businesses. We're going to have Lordland Films. Man, he's got some great films already. We're going to reach out across the world for other Black films. This is going to be the new way that we create our own media, because black media must be black owned. It cannot be urban, it must be black owned. You must have a passion about the community ahead of a passion about getting rich. It's okay to get rich, but your passion has to be with the community first. What else, Crazon, did I miss? Well, I know I missed.
Do the Black Book.
Yeah.
Gotta let them know about that.
Blackbook Bucks. If you get those when you call in and get your insurance quote. We're going to roll that out nationally, and it's going to be designed to recycle the black dollars. It looks like this: Blackbook Bucks. It's time to recycle. If you need some more information about Blackbook TV, if you'd like to be a sponsor, if you would like to have a show, if you would like to advertise on it, please call me at 708-805-3819 or text me, or send me an email at lbblackbook7202@gmail.com. We're excited, folks. There are no other, to my knowledge, black-owned channels in Vegas.
No, TV stations.
I'm sorry,
channels.
black-owned TV stations where we get to set up the content, where we go out and decide what we think the community needs to do, because we talk to the community and we're in the community. This is a game changer. This is a game changer. So help us at the Black Book do what we've been doing for the last 6 consecutive years, and that's to promote black economics.
Tell them about the candidates on the TV.
Okay. If you go into Mario's, you're going to see the TV, the candidates. All those that go to Mario's, you're going to see the candidates are up, and you can see who they are. We're going to post on Independent Black Voters Group the link to the Black Book that has their information and has links so you can listen to them and hear what they said. So I'm going to get the two of you all. I need you to send me a picture so I can put a link on here and people can look at what we just talked about today. Folks, informed voting and voting is so important to changing the trajectory to zero. And that's where we're headed right now. So we're excited because we're going to make a change. Anything else, Crazon?
No, that's it.
All right,
I think we've covered everything. And
We
we
did.
had people on here saying amen and say a great conversation, and they thanked you for coming on and talking the issues. So
Yes, we
Well,
thank
thanks
you
for
all.
having me.
This is Black Book Monday, and for transparency reasons, I am on nobody's payroll. I am on nobody's payroll. We are looking for the best candidates. One of these days I'll get on the payroll, but only if I can vet them and they have the right information to say. Where's Mario's? Mario's is on the corner of Martin Luther King and Lake Mead. If you go down there, man, Mario's...
he's truly one.
Yeah, Mario's is a good guy. The food's good. It's a high average. We do not have a black grocery, but he's the closest thing to it. So again, folks, go check it out. And again, we will talk more for next Black Book Mondays. Thank you very much. Peace out, folks. Black Book Mondays, SOS.